FormToro collects data at the pre-purchase level, which then goes through a data collection and analysis process so that you can draw insights from it. You could tag individual customers as well as they sign up. The question then is, what do you do with that data?
Yeah, so we do pop-ups, we do post-purchase, and we do, I guess, quizzes, because technically it's just logic map data collection. There's nothing special about that. Quizzes are pre-purchase when someone's just trying to figure something out. Most quizzes should just be better navigation, if I'm honest. 80% traffic's on mobile. If you do a product recommendation, you've got 3 products. I click on them, they open up in separate tabs on my mobile device. I can't compare them. It's a pretty bad experience, but we still do them for whatever reason under the guise of, like you said, collecting data, because all data is good data. It's not. What we do is we take the data and then we push everything over into something like Klaviyo, SendLane, etc. as a profile field. And that just gets added to that profile so that we can see kind of like what's up. But what we do with that data is we want to understand the context of that data. Specifically, we need data that's also going to be in relation to number of answers, number of orders, revenue, conversion rate. If I answer my favorite color is blue, do I convert at a higher rate than someone that answers red? If so, should we change more of our items to be blue that we show on the front page, right? Like, these are all data points that we can use to leverage. In terms of email, I think email is actually at the bottom of the list in terms of being able to use that data, because most of that data actually collected leads to conversion because it's so high intent within 12 days or less. Most of it's within like 12 hours to 3 days. So because the transaction happens so fast, instead that kind of data and that kind of insight is better used on like ads, landing pages, product pages, specifically product pages. God, there's so many terrible product pages out there that just don't have the basics. And that's really where you can make your gains happen, because your customer journey has multiple touch points and you should use that data across all the touch points. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I collected it via pop-up, so that means it only gets used in email. Probably like it's the lowest impact to use it on email.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe the amount of clients that we've onboarded, and I've asked, have you ever done any surveys? Have you ever collected any zero-party data on customers? And they either say no or they say yes. And then you follow up with, okay, well, what were the insights? Oh, well, we never looked at it. And you're like,
they don't have anything to compare it to, right? Like, so you'd have to, right now, if I was going to run a survey, here's what would happen. I'd pick out a segment of audience and I'd know that they'd purchased before for the most part, or I'd be able to segment that way. And then, or they've purchased a certain product, and then I'd send out a survey to them and I'd see what's up, right? So now I have a finite piece of information that relates to the propensity of someone of actually making a purchase related to answers. Cool. Where's the other half? Where's the propensity of people not to purchase? Where are their answers? How do they compare? Do I have context to that? Nah, I just know what's winning for whatever reason for them at some given time. Unless I said, what was your mental status when you decided to make this happen? You don't get a lot out of it. I got more out of customer support than I did out of any survey we ever sent. And people love surveys because then they get to qualify all the open-ended answers in a spreadsheet and then tag them and then say, oh, this is what's coming up, and, try to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. Now we have AI to summarize this stuff and set up an analysis. So we've been doing this shit for years. The problem with it is it's so far removed from when someone decides to make a purchase that people just don't care. There's no consideration for that. Oh, will you share this? Can we bribe you to share this so you come back again? So you're only going to get answers from people that were likely to purchase a second time, which is good. At least you're narrowing it down that way. But now you got to figure out what about them is different from people that aren't going to purchase a second time. Makes it really tough.
Yeah.
And you're not going to follow up with, hey, I noticed you didn't fill out this survey. Can you fill this out again and tell me why you're not looking to purchase a second time? No one does.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is the most valuable insight of zero-party data collection?
If you're doing it right, honestly, what we found is we tie it back to your ad spend in terms of quality of subscriber. So your ads aren't based on ROAS anymore. They should never be based on rows, because rows is a one-to-one time period, and some people take longer than others. But what you're looking for is the quality of the subscriber via the data combinations and their likelihood of actually converting once and then multiple times. If you have enough data over enough period of time, usually about 90 days, you'll start recognizing patterns within that data that tells you who, based on their sign-up, is more likely to convert than others and have a good experience with the product. If I come into a store that sells jackets and I say, I'm looking for a jacket that's going to be waterproof and lightweight, right? Those are my 2 criteria that you collect. And you sell a bunch of jackets that are heavyweight and wind resistant, but not waterproof, right? Like, we're probably not going to be a good fit. So when we find that pattern of whatever ad is depicting whatever, and it's leading to answers that are similar to what we're trying to focus on, and we can connect those data points, and then we can say, hey, statistically speaking, people that care about stuff that's rainproof make us more money. How do we find more people like them? Oh, let's look at our ads, look at our subscription intent data. Let's see who's signing up and saying rain jacket, and let's see what their conversion rate is. Do they have a higher likelihood of converting multiple times over one time based on all of our data collected? It's the really nerdy stuff, but like, you're looking for patterns within data that provides correlation and it can lead towards causation. You can't control causation, but you can look for relationships within the data that says this is more likely than not to happen versus this other answer.
Yeah. I think there might be either a misunderstanding or miscommunication around zero-party data being more linked to the acquisition strategy than it is to a retention strategy. I think simply because the customers are getting tagged, and that's getting pushed into your ESM.
Yeah, so the other thing is that the email agency tends to own the pop-up. So when you start looking at the goal of the email agency being how many, and I've looked at our own data internally, everyone cares about what their subscription rate is. No one cares about what their subscription to conversion rate is. If you got a list of 50 people and they all subscribe, and that conversion rate, subscription to that sign-up rate was like 15%, everyone's drooling. If you have another sign-up rate but no one purchases, great. So 50, no one purchases, that's a goose egg. But if you have this other one that only like sign-up rate is 2%, but 90% of them purchase, you just got a lot more sales there. You just got 45 sales coming out of that. Like, which one are you going to take at the end of the day? 45 sales.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, is we like to hype up KPIs that aren't relevant, or they're not relevant without context. And I think that's been the biggest problem, is that we have to unlearn what we've been told, because prior there wasn't a good way to track all this stuff. And now there's better ways to track all this stuff, and we can kind of figure out what's going on during that journey.
What would you say are some other KPIs that are overhyped?
ROAS is overhyped. Blended ROAS I still like as kind of a thing. Conversion rate is one that's really, really interesting. If I send out an email that is 50% off, my conversion rate's going to spike. If I send out an email, my conversion rate's going to spike, depending on how big my list is and what I'm offering, right? Like, every KPI in a vacuum is super gameable. You can game them all. The problem is understanding, if one goes up, how does that affect others? And that's what we miss. We get so wrapped up in individual KPIs that we forget that if something happens to one, it's got to be impacting another one.